Hello there. I was just sitting down, preparing to record my review for the tea game about making tea, Wanderstop, with this steaming hot cup of tea right here. And, okay, actually, no, I'm sorry. Look, this game is about making tea. Making tea in it is wonderful, and I do like hot tea, but I'm much more of an iced tea person, so... Alright, that's better. Now that I've got my actual tea, I'd like to thank Ivy Road for supplying me with the key to the game, and don't worry, I will drink both of these teas. To tell my history with Wanderstop with Ivy Road is to tell my history with indie games. I first learned of this little-known, independently developed and published game, Minecraft, when it was still in alpha, likely sometime during 2010. Minecraft was the first indie game I ever played. I spent very little time in pre-classic, the free web-based version that was but a single cube. And on December 12th, 2010, my brother and I convinced our mom to trust this sketchy online payment service PayPal to send €9.95 to this Swedish company Mojang, granting us access to the game proper. My exact hour count, as well as many fondly remembered worlds, are lost to history, but trekking through these beautiful, blocky, and foggy worlds, accompanied by the excellent and calming soundtrack composed by C418, remains one of my favorite things in video games. The OST especially is something special. The exact timbre of C418's piano is truly iconic, irreplicable, hauntingly beautiful. Minecraft officially released and hit version 1.0 in 2011, and was purchased by Microsoft in 2014, who have remained surprisingly good stewards. I still love spending time in the mines, and I said as much in an early video. In part due to my Minecraft delve, I was then led to the natural next step, Portal. Trust me, I'm going somewhere with this. Minecraft led to Minecraft YouTubers, or perhaps even vice versa, which led to video game YouTubers, which opened my eyes to games not found on Nintendo's suite of devices. The first of these, a game that blew me away after watching, a game that necessitated I play it for myself, was Portal, and Portal 2. The duology became my very first purchase on Steam, and my biggest leap into the greater world of PC gaming. Well, aside from my prior years in RuneScape, but that's different. But any amount of gaming requires a certain level of financial backing. At the time, my funds were quite limited, and I was still largely a Nintendo kid, with the bulk of my time and dollars being allocated to the latest Marios and Animal Crossings. The PC had an answer: indies, Steam sales, and the once coveted Humble Bundle. The formerly prestigious site would offer an abundance of games for pennies on the dollar, while also donating a large portion of the proceeds to charity. Did I play or even redeem every single game I purchased through the service? Lord, no. But those that made it through became some of my absolute favorites. Super Meat Boy, Psychonauts, Mirror's Edge, Plants vs. Zombies, The Stanley Parable. Like Portal, I first discovered The Stanley Parable through YouTube, but needed to experience it for myself. And in July 2015, I was given that opportunity via the Humble Yumbo Bundo 4. 9 games were included in this package. I redeemed just the one. The Stanley Parable is hilarious. It was hilarious in 2015 when I first played it. It was hilarious in 2023 when Ultra Deluxe released. And silly voice aside, I said as much in a review back then. Writer/designers Davey Wreden and William Pugh, along with the narrator Kevin Writing, performed a stunning feat with this subversive little game. The next year, I eagerly jumped into Wreden's follow-up, The Beginner's Guide, and while it's been a minute since I played this movie-length game, I deeply appreciated its thoughtful commentary on what it means to create art, what it's like to release it to the public. I also played Gone Home a few years ago, I think around 2019. While I don't have as nostalgic a connection with Carla Zamonja's work, I enjoyed Gone Home. It was, unfortunately, one of those games that I'd heard both copious praise and copious hate for by the time I finally got around to it, so my perception was clouded by all the expectations, and, for what it's worth, I jumped into Tacoma right afterward and really enjoyed that. The game/spaceship, not the city. I've never been to the city. I'm sure it's lovely. Which is all to say, when Wreden, Zamonja, and C418 popped up on an Annapurna interactive conference in 2021 to announce their new studio Ivy Road, my interest was immediately piqued. Wanderstop wasn't properly announced until Jeff Keighley's The Summer Game Fest in 2024 and officially released March 11th, 2025. However, development began 7 years prior in 2017. Wreden had originally wanted to make a cozy game to help calm down from the stress and burnout he felt coming off of his previous 2 games. When Zamonja joined the project, the theme of the game became trying to heal from this type of stress. It apparently didn't work. The team spent many long hours deciding exactly what the game should be, going from a procedurally generated type thing to the gardening and structured narrative in the final product. It took time really nailing down the personalities of Alta and Boro. Deciding the game would be about burnout was only the first step. Making it into an impactful narrative was the bulk of the journey. Plus, all the artists had to make the graphics and the animations and the 2D art meld together seamlessly, and the soundtrack and Folly work had to be composed for every character, mood, radio station, every lever pull, footstep, pluff and squeak, what have you. After it launched, Wreden said that the project was not the most rejuvenating experience for him. But over the years, the team grew to 17 full-time individuals, plus contractors, and the Annapurna Interactive and Pop Agenda teams. And even though the bulk of the Annapurna staff, quit in late 2024, the Wonder Pot was able to finish brewing. Wanderstop opens with a narration from Alta. She's a fighter, best in the world. After years of training, after doing the work, after putting in the hours, after giving herself no excuses, she reached the top. She was in control, undefeated, until she lost, and lost again. Broken, she resolved to find an old legend, Master Winters, in the forest at the edge of the world. She's the only one who could train her back, so she could reclaim her undefeated title. But things begin to run askew. First, her sword, the object she's wielded for so long it's become a part of her, becomes too heavy to carry. She leaves it behind to continue her search. Master Winters will be able to fix her, make her whole again, which are Alta's final thoughts as she collapses onto the forest floor. She wakes up on a bench overlooking a clearing in the forest next to the big and beloved Boro. After finding her passed out, Boro brought her to his tea shop, the Wanderstop, to rest and recover. He posits that she's exhausted and needs to calm down, take a break from her quest, maybe even help him out with the tea shop for a minute. Alta does not take kindly to this, and after failing to pick up her impossibly heavy sword, a sword Boro very easily recovered, she rushes back into the forest. She wakes up on a bench, overlooking a clearing in the forest, having been brought back by Boro once more. Finally, she relents, and accepts his offer to run the tea shop, but just for a while. As soon as she can lift her sword again, she's gone. Deeper narrative aside, Wreden's hope for a true and simple cozy game shines in the actual actions Alt performs. The game itself presents the steps to making a cup of tea as convoluted and not user-friendly, but actually performing them becomes second nature, a calming and zen-like ceremony. First, Alta needs tea balls. Tea leaves grow around the clearing. She picks them with a basket and dries them out for a few minutes, resulting in dried and clumped up balls. Then each tea needs a flavor, which is largely achieved through planting. Seeds can be planted in 2 configurations to grow plant eggs, which when watered grow into larger plants. Seeds planted in a straight line grow a small hybrid plant, which will produce more seeds. They can also be planted in what the game calls a triangle pattern to grow a large hybrid, which produces frubes. In both cases, the middlemost seed can be swapped with a different color seed to produce a new plant. With tea balls and frubes in hand, Alta can head over to the tea machine to get to brewing. The process of using this has her climbing up and down a ladder multiple times as it swivels around the machine itself, but the steps involved are comfortably rote. Fill the machine with water, heat it up, drain it to the next compartment, toss in ingredients, drain it to the final compartment, and fill up a cup. Wanderstop is then a series of reasons to continue doing this. Occasionally a customer will arrive in the clearing, sometimes wanting tea. Alta must grow the plants that produce the frubes with the requested flavor, or flavors, climb around the convoluted contraption, then serve them their tea. When there are no customers, Alta can, of course, repeat these steps for herself, or borrow, or any of the meandering pluffins, or do some light yard work. Weeds can be cut back, leaf piles can be swept up, all accompanied by the dynamic score composed by C418. The song playing, even the part of the song that is playing, adjusts depending on what Alta's doing or who she's talking to. As the original composer of Minecraft, C418 had high expectations to live to, but he effortlessly exceeded them, at least seemingly effortlessly. Every song perfectly matches the mood of what's going on. Every character's theme matches their personality perfectly, or just walking around the forest clearing is accompanied by a song that makes this little jaunt so relaxing. If Alta does decide to sit down and enjoy a cup, I was rewarded with excellent narration from Kimberly Woods. Each flavor gives Alta something to think about. This one reminds her of the closest thing to a childhood friend she ever had. This one makes her calm. This one is just water with a book in it. My favorite is when she drinks a tea that has a way of getting the drinker to reveal a regret of theirs. She talks of a time that she pushed someone she was training too far. Outwardly, she defended her action, but the pain in her voice was so visceral. I sat with her in silence long after she finished.
Is that you're the one who wanted it to go too far. You asked for this because you wanted it, not me. I'm not...
Woods' performance throughout the entire game is one of the absolute highlights. The game is also hilarious. Whether it's looking at photo after photo of a teenage boy and his dad, or making Alta be the most sarcastic person possible, or feeding a book to a Batgirl, or facing off an old merchant in wits, or reading a series of novels about everyone's favorite action hero, Dirk Warhard, or watching 5 different business presentations, or getting distracted by all the pluffins walking by. There are laugh-out-loud moments throughout the entire runtime, which added a really nice buffer in between the deeper narrative moments. See, many people, myself included, saw Wreden's name on the package and our imaginations exploded. How would this game subvert the quote-unquote cozy game genre? Well, the thing is, it didn't. It's funny, sure, but in terms of the actions Alta takes, in terms of the verbs the player has access to, it is played completely straight. Wanderstop is a game about making tea. Where the game becomes interesting is with its narrative. Hello again, just thought I'd give a tea update. It's good. This one here is a green tea I got a while back, and this one is some peppermint tea that I just made right now. Yes, it's in a Starbucks cup. No, it is not from Starbucks. This cup I got June 2023. It's been a while since I've been to a Starbucks. This is just the cup I had on hand. I also wanted to mention the whole spoiler thing. I'm about to start spoilering the whole thing, so I'd like to give my summary here and now. I had a beautiful time with Wanderstop. Alta was incredibly relatable and a joy to play as, even when she was being far too sarcastic with the fascinating customers or with the beautiful man who is Boro. Alta's arc was so nice to journey through, to be able to shift her responses as she changed throughout her time in the forest was enriching. And the customers themselves were almost always a joy to interact with. Boro is the standout. Him being a solidly lovely person the entire runtime almost acted as an anchor for the narrative, and I always enjoyed hearing his thoughts on the next cup of tea. The gameplay being so simple only strengthened the game's case for relaxation, and when I did find myself with no one to talk to or nothing to do, wandering around this clearing, cleaning up or prepping more tea balls while enjoying this little piece of hyper-stylized nature was, honestly, exactly what I needed. Speaking of, not only was the environment stunning, but all the character designs were off the charts, and the 2D art style was the perfect encapsulation of the 3D models. Playing on a PS5, the DualSense was surprisingly well utilized. The pause menu is one of the most pleasant menus I've ever had the pleasure of playing with. A soft rumble accompanies a musical note played in tune with the song every time an option is selected. And I have never had a breezier, more streamlined platinum trophy in my life. I literally just played the game, and the trophies would seemingly pop at random. If I had one note, one major complaint, it would be with how some of the gardening is implemented, necessitating putting away an item before picking up one of a different type, or sometimes one of the same type if it's an object or a frube, never felt as streamlined as it should have. Regardless, it is a beautiful environment, a touching story, a calming soundtrack, absolutely lovely game. So now, let me finish up my teas and I'll meander on to some of the story specifics. I found Alta to be immediately relatable. Her plight is so intimate with the human experience, or at least my human experience. She's a great fighter, now she can't do it. She has a mental blocker prohibiting her from doing the thing she wants to do the most, from doing the thing she's the best at. But at the same time, another part of her is telling her, forcing her to keep trying, telling her she's an abject failure if she can't. She's trained every single day for years, and if she even takes a moment to catch her breath, she's worthless. When she enters the forest, this voice becomes actualized, literalized, and the execution is stunning. It literally grabs her by the hand and propels her further until her body goes out, until she cannot even stand. Alta's body and Alta's inner voice are in conflict, a conflict that, if allowed to continue, would be the death of her. But by becoming literalized, there also becomes a slight separation, and with help from Boro, Alta is able to take a step back from the voice and actually relax, make tea, talk to people, kiss and pet a pluffin. And the story is about the various ways Alta takes to this relaxation. The first portion of the game has Alta reluctantly partaking in these ceremonies. She's not there to relax, she's not there to recuperate, she doesn't even quite believe she's exhausted, and these feelings come through via the dialogue. She meets two customers, well, quote-unquote customers, during the first portion of her journey. The unnamed demon hunter, who I am absolutely headcanoning as non-binary, and Gerald, the very real knight and very proud dad. Alta is not very nice to these people, not very understanding. The non-binary demon hunter is not there to drink tea. They are there to be the local demon hunter, to be a part of this community and to help banish demons, such as getting your neighbors to mow the lawn less often or to help with your anxiety. Alta demands them to order a drink and unloads far too many personal details, scaring them back into the forest. When they finally return and reluctantly order a Wreden tea for a Wreden tea ceremony, Alta makes a mockery of it. Almost every response, even the positive ones, are laden with heavy sarcasm. That's when she's not outright telling them that they should leave. This is a tea shop, not a community. You're not needed here. Go. She was less rude to Gerald, although that was more due to me, the player, wanting to see all the Timothy photos. See, Gerald is unknowingly tormenting his teenage son Timothy by taking copious photos, many at ungodly hours during the night. And in his latest effort to endear himself to the child, he's gone off to be a knight, equipped with a bunch of real knight things like a broom plume and a tie, and eventually a stop sign. Alta humored the man, looked through his plethora of photos, while also repeatedly telling him that he was not, in fact, a knight. I, of course, was immediately endeared towards both the demon hunter and Gerald. Their musical motifs were lovely, and their character designs were wonderful, but it took Alta getting to know them a bit more before she came around. Eventually, the demon hunter performs a second ceremony. This time they open up about themselves. Alta learns about the demon hunters, about the organization's mantra to embetter the world, all while occasionally glancing at the pluffins as they walk by. And Gerald, well, he's cursed. An old witch stabbed his leg while muttering a spell. Now it's subsumed by a purple smoke, and he doesn't seem to be taking it all that seriously. He leaves, comes back, asks for more tea. Alta begs him to look into the smoke. He doesn't. Instead, he leaves again. Comes back wrong. His speech patterns are off. He doesn't seem to have a concept of self, speaks only in riddles. Alta asks Boro if he knows any remedies, to no avail. Then she speaks to the demon hunter, who says nothing. Boro explains, the forest has a will of its own. It changes based on the people within, and right now it recognizes that Alta needs a change. He directs her to a mysterious shrine set underneath a wondrous willow tree, and directs her to sit down beside it, meditate, and maybe the forest will give her some answers. This is where the game pulls its first narrative magic trick. These characters, who both I and Alta have learned to like, they're gone. Forever. The forest has reconfigured the clearing. The color palette has fully shifted. The pagoda is now over there, the workbench is next to the shop, the hanging garden is out by the entrance, but most notably, the people are gone. The demon hunter and Gerald were right for the previous configuration, but their stories no longer intersect with Alta's. There will be no third Wreden ceremony for Alta to patch things over. She will never find a cure for Gerald. Then, new people arrive. This second section has Alta getting more comfortable with her tasks. Various customers will come in with varied requests. One person wants something to ease the pain and to distract the mind. Another has never had tea before and wants one flavored like a book. The two mainstays are Nana and Ren. Nana is an old saleswoman who sets up her own shop right outside the Wanderstop. Of course, she only accepts Nana bucks as currency, doesn't actually sell anything, and absolutely does not want any tea. But through bartering gave me my favorite cup in the game, a copper mug with the word die scratched into it. I miss that mug. The most impactful storyline in this section is with Ren, the fighter. He's a hulking man donning an imposing skull mask who just so happens to be a fan of Alta. He's on his own journey, seeking out the forest to gain new skills and better himself in the arena, and sees Alta as the perfect opportunity to do so. First, he just wishes to spar with the former champion. Alta commits. She pushes herself to meet this colleague as an equal. She collapses. This, for me, was when Alta finally got a kink in her armor. She can't run, she can't spar, she can't lift up her sword. Maybe Boro's right. Maybe she does need to stay here and rest. Unfortunately, telling this to Ren only steals his resolve. He may have started this quest to better himself, but now it's clear his true purpose is to help Alta recover. He concocts a scheme. Traverse the forest for days, weeks, months, looking for a particular sacred spring. And even just the planning stage causes Alta to berserk. She had pushed her body to its absolute limit for such a prolonged period that even trying to think completely overwhelms her. Her outburst recolors Ren's perception of her. A true warrior. The person he believed Alta to be, the person who Alta desperately wants to be, would never take a break. They would continue striving until any predicament, no matter how large, was overcome. Ren leaves the clearing, borderline disgusted with the person Alta has become. She finds solace in Boro. I wasn't the person he wanted me, she finds herself telling the tea maker. Well, Boro will simply say that he very much enjoys the person that Miss Alta is. This experience is what finally convinced Alta that she truly necessitated a step back. She didn't have to like making tea, she didn't have to love helping a cavalcade of customers, but she needed a change of pace, time to step back and actually take count of where her life is, of which track she wants to take going forward. This feeling was finalized when Ren returned. He left the forest convinced of his way, of always pushing ahead, and he paid a tremendous price for it. He leaves his mask, the symbol of his honor and respect in combat, gifted to him by the Vindian Empress, resting next to Alta's sword. Then all the clientele goes silent. During her first meditation before the clearing shifted, she also received something of a vision. She was running through the woods, the world was darker, everything was slower, but she wasn't alone. There, next to her, was her glowing visage, reassuring her of all her doubts, telling her she can do anything as long as she keeps trying. But before her second meditation, Alta wants answers. She wants the forest to tell her what's wrong, how to fix whatever's availing her. During this vision, she meets Boro, who encourages her to think, to remember. She sees herself arriving at a house, Master Winter's house. Within was an elderly woman happy to host her young and enthusiastic guest for the day, but unable or unwilling to spend her last days training the young fighter. Then she sees the golden glowing version of herself. It grabs her by the hand, forces her to grip her sword, forces her to lunge towards the former god. Alta regains control, having stabbed Winters in the arm, the older woman demanding she leave. Alta flees the scene, suppresses the memory. She comes to in the clearing, sitting next to Boro, but everything is wrong. What was once an environment filled with plants and vibrant colors is now monochromatic, whites and grays, with dark weeds covering every inch. This portion of the game is short but powerful. All I was able to do was sit in Alta's anger at herself, her shock, her unwillingness to accept that she could perform an act so cruel. She grabs the shears and cuts weeds, and cuts weeds. Freaking Son Goku shows up, but she cannot be bothered. She cuts more weeds. I mean, it's a dude riding a nimbus cloud, but we never actually get his name. She cuts more weeds, then she meditates. By this point, the game had fully revealed my favorite of its magic tricks, voice acting. The game opens with an excellent performance from Woods as Alta, and throughout the game she's heard during two scenarios, whenever she sits down and drinks a piping hot cup of tea, or when her inner voice speaks. It's such an ingenious trick. Given the game's independent status, it's easy to assume that when the opening cutscene ends and we're given Alta dialogue without acting, it was due to some form of budgetary constraints. There is a lot of dialogue, especially from Alta. Hiring voice actors and allocating studio time for each of the dozen-plus characters seems like a lot. It's only natural proper voiceover would be reserved for larger moments. But that is not the case. Not entirely so, at least. This other part of her, this glowing visage in the shape of her, is the embodiment of her inner voice. The forest has taken that small person in the back of her mind, telling her what to do, and made it its own entity. So when she first gets to the forest, and it begins talking through text only, that is the part of Alta that I am controlling. When the text turns yellow, and we can hear Woods' performance, that's instruction Alta cannot say no to. This is illustrated amazingly at the start of the 4th section. She's calmed down from the realization that she injured Master Winters and has fully accepted that she does need to take a step back, but the inner voice starts compensating, resting, for the voice is still not on the table. It needs Alta to be the best, to always work on becoming the best. With fighting off the table, the voice comes out for the first time during a Boro bench convo, now telling Alta that she must put her all into this venture. She can be the best tea maker.
And hey, if I can't fight anymore, then I'll just be great at making tea instead. That's fine.
It was as stunning as it was heartbreaking. The initial reveal, way back during the first meditation sequence, when inner voice Alta was talking to physical body Alta, felt groundbreaking. And what Ivy Road did with this paid off immaculately. Alta, the whole person of Alta, knows, deep down, that she can't go on like this any further. Her body literally tells her this by refusing to pick up the sword, but the voice is so ingrained in its own mentality, from the years of telling herself to be the best, from the years of society expecting her to be the best. The voice is wholly set in its way and will not rest. It takes finding this forest, being partially separated from the voice, meeting Boro, and being forced to stop for Alta to finally start listening to her body. It's a bit ironic then how I found myself doing exactly what the game had been warning against. My circumstances differ from Alta's, of course, but we were both motivated by this same drive. This was an exciting opportunity for me. I have never played a game before its release before, and it was exhilarating, tremendously so. In the weeks preceding, months preceding really, I had been hard at work on about a dozen other videos, writing, recording, and editing as much as I physically could in what meager free time I had to make my 2025 upload schedule more than it was in 24. Just before the code came in, I was nearly done, but I was exhausted. I was fantasizing about what came next. Maybe I could catch up on Friends at the Table, maybe watch a movie, or even play a game I didn't plan on reviewing. Then I got an email. The second I downloaded the game, I steeled my resolve. I was going to play and review this game, and I was going to do it in 2 weeks. I will burn the candle at both ends quite literally became my mantra. I'd lose out on sleep, have less than perfect hygiene, skip out on my weekly chores, but I needed this. It didn't matter how tired I was, it didn't matter how bad my headache got, as long as I did the work, as long as I put in the hours, as long as I gave myself no excuses, then I'd be in control, then I'd finish it on time. I ran and I fought until I couldn't carry my sword any longer. I couldn't bear the weight of the dual sense, I guess. But where in Alta's case her body was forcing her to get rest, in my own it was, inadvertently, Wanderstop itself. A bug, a seemingly minor one at that, prevented Alta from tossing in a bean into the tea machine. I'm sure a boolean needed to get toggled somewhere in the code to tell the game that this version of the bean was good, or at least something like it, but at this moment, Alta couldn't use it. I couldn't use it. I couldn't progress. I was thirsty. It was already past my regular bedtime, but whenever I was playing, staring at the screen, making new hybrids, talking to witty and charismatic customers, trimming weeds or harvesting plants or sweeping leaves, I convinced myself I was feeling great. It's almost as if the game knew that I, much like Alta, was pushing myself too hard, and it forced me to take time off, to relax, sleep in, do my Miku fitness boxing session, take a shower. Yeah, maybe the review would be delayed, but it's better to take it easy now than to be found passed out in the woods. The fourth part of Wanderstop is about Alta accepting that the only way she's going to be, and I'm using the biggest scare quotes here, fixed, is by doing it herself. It's also told through what was, to me, perhaps the saddest side story in the game, but I'm bringing in a lot of personal biases in that judgment. One of the earliest guests during this gold and amber colored portion of the game is a boring businessman, Jerry. He requires coffee before he can give his presentation to the board. The Wanderstop does not serve coffee. Coffee beans do not even grow in the grove. The businessman is followed by a second, near-identical businessman, Larry, who is then followed by a third, Terry, and even later a fourth, Harry. But the third is also followed by something out of this world. Their name is Zenith. They are what seems to be a multi-dimensional spacefaring symbiotic being who is completely obsessed with these businessmen. They metaphysically alter the clearing, the dimension, to allow coffee beans to grow so that these men can get their coffee, assuming the game isn't bugged. And they can also recognize something wrong with Alta. Some change structure isn't quite right in her. Alta is desperate to find someone else to fix her, and Zenith seems to be just that person. She travels to the forest with Zenith following, and they're able to see Alta's memories, and might be able to actually fix her. But in the same way that the forest was able to separate Alta from her inner voice, so too is it causing Zenith to go through their own transformation. Zenith, being a near omnipresent multidimensional being, not only recognizes this change, but welcomes it with open arms. They try to tell Alta what's wrong, try to push her in the right direction, but their own transformation is too important. It would be too painful to hold it off any longer. After their first session in the forest, suddenly they're wearing a tie. After another, they're slouched over and walking on the ground, until, finally, there is a fifth businessman in the forest clearing. Gary has no memories of his previous life. To clarify my point, I think it's horrid for a majestic being like Zenith to be squished into this business-shaped box, but it is explicitly what Zenith wanted, so, to each their own, I guess. But it is also strong storytelling, giving one last push for Alta, forcing her to accept the responsibility of rehabilitating herself, of forcing her to become the person she wants to be. She's given her last test during the fifth and final part of the game. A kid shows up, like a 5 or 6 year old little monster, who goes by Monster. This little brat builds a mud statue, draws on the floors and walls, and refuses to drink any tea. Alta desperately wants this kid's approval, needs to appear cool. Nana also comes back, the one and only returning customer, or business rival, depends on the perspective. This time around, she asks for the most convoluted coffee order you've ever heard, but unfortunately doesn't return with her dye mug, to my chagrin. God, I miss that mug. It was also the only time I ever messed up an order for a customer. The real reason she's back is 'cause of the kid. She gives the final reveal about these woods. It sorta unlocks things in people. Boro there is able to see what people need. Nana's able to get a feel for people's futures. And that kid is being forced onto a dark path. It's completely outside of the kid's control. If somebody doesn't step in and help her, things could go bad. And Nana decrees Alta this person. Alta keeps this in mind as she starts bragging to the kid that she was once the best fighter on all the lands, undefeated, once fought off 6 bandits at once. This, naturally, makes Monster want to be a fighter too, wants to be trained by Alta, wants to find something she's good at. Alta tries to reverse course, which results with Monster getting upset, then stealing Alta's sword, then escaping into the woods. Rushing after turns into an inflection point for both Alta and Monster. The child explodes with some mysterious power dark nen emanating off her person as she haphazardly swings Alta's sword around, drunk on this newfound power. That's when the retired warrior notices she can see and hear both her own inner voice visage as well as monsters. Upon being noticed, the child's golden persona rushes off, prompting Alta's to chime in. This is your chance to take back what belongs to you, which leads to Alta's second revelation. She tells the voice no. She does not lunge and grab frantically for the sword, instead going over to comfort Monster's inner voice, doing her best to mitigate the situation, telling Monster's voice something she wished someone would have told her, that the voice doesn't always need to be the predominant force in her life, that sometimes it's okay to just be yourself. Sometimes endings really get to me. I feel there are strong comparisons between how Wanderstop closes its varied stories and how the game Spiritfarer does it. Spiritfarer is a game about saying goodbye, about ferrying spirits to the great beyond when their time has come. It might be the game that has affected me the most, but it is a game about saying goodbye. In all but one case, it's designed to make the player care for these animals, then bring them to their final resting place, to give each a strong and definitive conclusion. Wanderstop almost takes the exact opposite stance. From the onset, Alta meets characters, cares for them, then will never see them again. At least not within the forest clearing, not within the confines of this particular story. In all but two cases, there are no goodbyes. And in all cases, there are no definitive conclusions. We'll never know how long Zenith exists as Gary. Perhaps he's Gary forever, or perhaps they changed back shortly after leaving the clearing. We'll never know what happened to Monster, but hopefully her time with Alta pushes her towards a better future. We'll never know if Gerald is alright. Well, sorta. I did get a letter from him, so he's at the very least not too cursed anymore. I guess the team knew that that particular story needed a bit more finality to it, but we still don't know how his reunion with Timothy will go. Most importantly, we will never know what happens to Alta. She has changed, grown, healed so much during my time with her, but the future is unwritten. She has all the lessons. She knows she can stop moving, that she doesn't need to listen to the voice all the time. Now she needs only to practice. Back one last time, it seems. I've just about finished up my hot tea. My iced tea will take a little longer. And there's only a few words left in the script. Just wanted to chime in and say, it's important to keep moving, but it's equally important to relax and appreciate your surroundings. Sit in nature and bask in its wonder. Cuddle up with a pet or a loved one and enjoy their presence, their warmth. Enjoy the ceremony of making a cup of tea. Or two. Overall, I give Wanderstop a multicolored pluffin out of 10. Look, they already had me at penguins, what have unibrows and can fly. Having their feathers become wild colors after drinking tea somehow makes them even better. Thanks for watching. Have you tried out Wanderstop yet? I highly recommend it. Plus, check out Stanley Parable and Minecraft 2 if you somehow haven't already. at least watch my old videos on them. And let me know which narrative-based indie game I should hop into next. While you're here, maybe leave a rating or subscribe, and if you'd like to bug me elsewhere, you can find me at Mario8 on all my socials. Links are in the description. Plus, some fun Wanderstop related links will be in there too. I miss Cohost. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.